What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in the bunker. Purple State Party. You know what we're trying to do here? We're trying to wrap America, the center, common sense. And to always remember, keep on popping in the free world. All right, we're going to see how this one's going to go. I got that late night concert hangover. I didn't know that the guy who wrote one of my favorite comic books right there, Umbrella Academy, had a band. Did you? I don't know, but it was nice to see Frank Iero. In my fucking way. My Chemical Romance. Got to see Meg Myers do that cover of Running Up That Hill. That was kind of cool. Saw some cool shirts. People were wearing Carly Rae Jepsen shirts. That was an odd choice, I'd have to say. Most of the people there were not really wearing a lot of clothing, it seemed. Yeah, that was kind of cool. I saw a t-shirt that said abolish the Supreme Court because assholes live forever. I found that one funny because, you know, we live in this day and age where the asshole is just the person with the wrong letter next to their name. You know, it's not a matter of really how they act, what they say, what they do, what they actually accomplish. No, it's about that letter. But today, you know, in honor of some legendary mystery-solving characters, I'm going to present some clues for you to solve the Scooby-Doo agenda. The Scooby-Doo agenda. I need to learn to enunciate. I know that. Got on this shirt today. This is my Batman Van Gogh. Give yourself 150 purple bonus points if you know why I'm wearing this particular shirt. But anyhow, I'm going to chug this, and I'll be right back. So this is the part of the show, you know, kicking it off. I usually start with the title, the Scooby-Doo agenda. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of agendas out there right now. Well, mainly two, Republican and Democrat. But there's multiple agendas within each one of those groups. And, you know, we see the same thing we see on a Scooby-Doo mystery, you know. These obvious clues, these rambling chases, you know. Lots of weed, yep. Bribery, Scooby snacks, come on. That's nothing but bribery. You know, and at the end of the day, it's just some dude in a mask. Yeah. I mean, that is a parable of what we're going through right now. A lot of people saying one thing, doing another, that kind of stuff, you know. Man in the mask, you know. And it's just far-fetched. A lot of these agendas are just so far-fetched. It's again, like Scooby-Doo. How is the theme park gardener going to create a photorealistic hologram machine that shoots lasers? Come on. I mean, and that's the kind of thing that we have with some of these agendas, where you could just look at it from the onset and say, that's never going to work. Scooby-Doo was a cartoon, but real life is real life, and as we're going to see, that this is what this episode is going to focus on, is these agendas and just how pointless they are. But first, you know, we have to start with the people who died. I can't say that word for some reason. I don't know. We can blame it on some. Blame it on my ADD. Angela Lansbury, the star of Murder, She Wrote. Star of a lot of things. She was in Beauty and the Beast, as you know, many of you might know her from. That's what she looked like. This was one of my favorite movies that she was in. You know, look at that. It's got soccer down there. Look at that. Yeah, I love me some soccer. But Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, it was a Disney film about an apprentice witch who fought the Nazis. And that's what it was about. It was one of those, animated ones. And there's Angela right there. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, see it. I don't know how well it holds up because I haven't seen it in a while, but I have seen it recently. And, you know, it was entertaining. And it's one of those things that for historical context, I think people should see it. Yeah, there you go.
Beauty and the Beast. Run along and get in the cupboard, Chip. Time you was in bed. Good night, love.
Biden, make America great again are the three most dangerous words in the world. Yeah. I start this off by saying that, I'm trying to rep America. We are a leader of good in this world. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The better we do, the better the world can do. But if we're going to destroy ourselves from within, who does that benefit? Oh, that's right. This dude. And this is talking about a man in a mask. When this guy came on the scene, he came on as looking like maybe a reformer, somebody who connected with the people, but it was all a facade. He is now going to be appointed basically like God King of China. Yeah, ultimate power like that. Look at this. Two guys that look like Winnie the Pooh. Alex Jones. What an asshole. The only exposure I had to Alex Jones was through my favorite show of all time, the Kevin and Bean Show on K-Rock. And they used to make fun of this guy all the time. I think one of the reasons why you see that little headline right there, why aren't more Republicans condemning Alex Jones? Well, part of it is this, the insanity of kind of suing people for their opinions, even if they're stupid. I go out of my way to ignore this dude, so I don't really have a lot of information on the case. All I do know is that a lot of times when you hear these big judgments, what you don't hear is that they're reduced upon appeal. A lot of times juries, they overstep what they can and can't do. But either way, that guy was an asshole, so I don't really give a shit what happens to him. I don't condemn him. I just think he was an idiot. And he is one of the inspirations behind Purple State in the fact that I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that extremist to the left or the right. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. There you go. Joe Biden spent a whopping. You say, why does it have to be a whopping? Because to people like that, $265,000 really isn't a lot of money. That isn't really whopping to them. It's whopping to us, I guess. But yeah, he's defending his son. I guess at the end of the day, what's he supposed to do? It's kind of like the war in Ukraine. What's he supposed to do? Finding offense everywhere you look is just self-importance disguised as virtue. And that is one of the things that's starting to come to the forefront is that, a lot of people being offended for people that they don't even represent really has become the new way of easing your guilt. That's what they say about Hollywood actors. These people, get to live a fantasy life. They get all this money and sure, they feel bad about it, so they want to give back, and they want to force people to give back, and they want to pretend that they're a force for good, even though they're just sort of a lot of times a force for insanity. So the Inflation Reduction Act is apparently not working, and Biden says that the Republicans want to repeal it. Well, it's not working. If it was the inflation, like we talked about this last week, I mean, if it's going to be the build electric vehicle chargers bill, then call it that. If it's going to be the Green Deal, call it that. But to call it something like the Inflation Reduction Act, it's just misleading. And we really need to, really need to get rid of that in politics. And I mean, we do it in advertising now. If you know the world of phone games, you know how deceptive their ads are. Well, we don't need that in our politics. We've got these huge problems. People I know are thinking about having to get a second job now just to make ends meet. And the job they already do is tiring enough. I mean, come on. And see, here's another one of these agendas where, great, okay, Biden got Saudi Arabia to postpone some oil cuts. Or he attempted to, But they rejected his quid pro quo, which was the big thing they had against Trump. But, it's just, okay, they're going to do what they're going to do to get votes. But again, is that really what we want? At one point, this was going to be my lead article because I found it just insane. The thumbs up emoji is hostile. Look, I'm going to try to sum this one up quickly for everybody. The younger generation is supposed to tell us what's cool and what's lame. All right? That's, time has, in memoriam, there, whatever. But when the largest portion of the population uses thumbs up to say thumbs up, we can't placate the lower minority and say, okay, yeah, we're going to go with hostile and passive aggressive. Sure, it could be used that way, but so could anything. The word thanks, you put thanks in quotation marks, but maybe if we didn't read so much emotion into text, unless it is specified to be such, Like I said, if you put quotes around something, people know you're being sarcastic, I'm just flipping through some notes here. But, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. But knock it off. Come on. We have much bigger problems than emojis. And the Democrats have a few problems. I mean, one of their, I don't know, one of their known quantities has left the party and is denouncing it as an elitist cabal. It is. It's the man in the mask again. They masquerade as concerned liberal left-wingers. But all they're doing is placating the young and the naive. It has always been the young people, setting certain trends. But for the most part, politically, they were just ignored. Even though they rebelled, but they were ignored. And now people are listening to them. But they're not listening to them because what they have to say makes sense or could make change. They're listening to them for votes. And that is exactly what's going on. You have rich elite people trying to pretend that they are a person living in a tent rebelling against big oil. Anyhow, yeah, Galbert recorded a 30-minute video, and it's not announced plans. I don't know what party to join. I know what party I would start. I would start the Purple State Party. We take the good from each side and leave the bad behind. But she no longer remains in the party. One reason is because of cowardly wokeness and warmongering. And it is true. They have started a few wars or gotten us involved in a few wars. I mean, Trump didn't. But again, it's this turning on, like she says, anti-white racism or God-given freedoms. Demonizing police, protecting criminals, weaponizing national security to go after political opponents, hostile to people of faith and spirituality. Look, I mean, if you are of a religious group, you have that freedom. And maybe you might have some bad ideas, but that doesn't mean that I should persecute you. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. And look at that. We've already seen America. When there's that word, common sense, that phrase, common sense. Gabbard also addressed other disillusioned common sense Democrats, calling on them to follow her lead. We need something that is actually in the middle. Not a fringe group. Something in the middle. With Tulsi Gabbard, oh God. Tulsi Gabbard out of the Democratic Party, title of hottest Democrat goes back to Nancy Pelosi. Well, I know I didn't think the Babylon Bee smoked weed, but apparently they do. Rick Caruso, kind of showing what Rick Caruso, another one. Recently, my brother asked me who I thought were purple, and I said Tulsi Gabbard and Rick Caruso. But Caruso, whatever you want to think of him, he says he connects with the Latino community because he's Italian. I'm not sure I buy that, except that it is sort of true. Italy used to be referred to as the Mexico of Europe. Sort of speak a common language, but whatever. Let's move on. You've probably already read this whole thing by now. But the part that really got me, if one group rises, we all rise. We do this together in unison, and we don't separate. We don't divide. But we all say to ourselves, We can do this, and we can have a better city. We can have a better life. We can have a better world. We can have a better country. But the truth of the matter is, there's always going to be those divisions. The only way through it, like he says, is to just admit that there will be differences. There will be preferences. But anyhow, piggybacking off of what Gabbert was saying, Kanye has a pro-black message, a pro-black and pro-life message. Liberals have an anti-black message. They want to silence and control black people. Democrat Party is the party of white supremacy. What if that is the man behind the mask? Huh? Maybe the theme park owner. You know, they pull off that goblin mask, and there it is, white supremacy. Gavin Newsom, this is going back to the oil thing. It's their blind allegiance to this climate change agenda and what it's cost us. There is no evidence that oil and gas companies are ripping off customers. Oil and gas companies, after all, do not determine the price per gallon of gas at the pump. And as we saw last week, those gas station owners aren't making a lot off of gas. California has imposed some of the most aggressive and thus expensive and limiting environmental regulatory requirements in the world, said a guy representing the oil companies. California policies have made it difficult to increase refining capacity and have prevented supply projects to lower operating costs of refineries. It costs too much money to make gas, to refine it. We have special gas here, folks. You know, I don't know if people know that, but we do. They have to refine it. We are isolated from fuel markets of the Central and East because of that unique blend of gasoline, making California the most challenging market to serve. That's why gas prices are high. It costs more here. California policymakers have knowingly adopted policies with the express intent of eliminating the refinery sector. So there you go. That's that agenda. No matter what it does, when the agenda is king, we are the peasants. That's why we can't have these agendas that are so blindly followed that it leads to these kind of catastrophes. When you shut down refinery operations, you limit the resilience of the supply chain. For your green energy, I get it. We need to move to a greener future, but it's not going to happen overnight, and you freaking know that. And you know it's not even going to happen by 2035 or 2040. We will be getting closer and closer with every decade. But let's be realistic. Let's do what we can do now without costing so damn much, because we are ruining our lives for something that is not going to make a damn bit of difference until every country gets on board. And that's going to take a long time. And it's going to take a long time for developing nations to get online with a project like that. But we think we can do it overnight. So, if you haven't heard, most people have. The LA City Council, the president, and other people were caught on some sort of hidden recording. And when the White House was brought up about it, Jean-Pierre pointed the fingers at the Republicans and said, oh, well, they celebrate it. And the funny thing is, they celebrate when people say things like that. But what these people said was ugly, and it was racist. And about the only thing good that came out of it, from my point of view, is, there you go. There's the truth. Okay, that's what a lot of people have already known. Groups don't like other groups. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what labels people put on people, BIPOC, and, lumping everybody together as people of color. That's not the real world, folks. Hey, leaked audio recording from October. I'm not going to read any of this stuff out. It's right there on the screen for you. Yeah, it's, I'm not shocked that people, of one community have those feelings about people of another community. That's the real world. I live in the real world. I see the real world. I know how people really feel. I mean, lots of us do because we're actually out there among people, not like politicians and these entitled, rich, spoiled kids with their freaking crazy ideas. I sounded like a boomer there, didn't I? But right here, when a MAGA Republican says something racist or anti-Semitic, they are embraced by cheering crowds and become no, they're not. Okay? Those are your definitions of it. I read one of these articles, and it was talking about how the Democrats, they resigned, or they're being asked to resign, and Biden's asking them to resign. Meanwhile, Herschel Walker is anti-abortion but paid for an abortion. It's kind of not the same thing. Okay? I mean, one is extremely egregious and one is just hypocritical. And, I'm not a Herschel Walker fan. We're going to get more on Herschel. So here I am, one of my things that I love in life is to find myself defending or agreeing with somebody who I'm not a fan of. Somebody who I don't really care for it. But Greta Thunberg is definitely that person. But I agree with her on this. But there's that German Green Party. And this is just mind-bending. She said, I personally think it's a bad idea. If they are already running, I think it would be a mistake to shut them down in favor of coal. The Greens' Robert Habeck, the government's vice chancellor and long the country's most popular politician, has had to sustain criticism over his energy policy. He wants to decommission one nuclear power plant and put 2 into a dormant state. And to substitute for the loss of 4 megawatt capacity, he wants to burn coal. Because his agenda is so anti-nuclear, but he's a member of the Green Party. But you would rather burn coal than nuclear. It's just absurdly sticking to an agenda, folks. That's the problem we have. If the agenda is bad, leave it behind. Admit your mistakes. I had to do rehab, basically to avoid jail time. I got out, and for 6 months, I was perfectly sober. I thought I had regained control, okay? One night when I was on a meth bender, I forgot to drink, and I started having the DTs. And, I quickly got to a liquor store and drank some vodka, because I didn't want to die. But I knew in that moment that I obviously was an alcoholic. And the next weekend, I went in on Friday night, and I came out, I believe, on a Sunday. And, I've been sober for 30 years. Because my way was not working. So anyhow, Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill because of the cost. And what was that? 2660. A disturbing problem. A lack of clear and consistent data on dying children. This guy will fucking spend money on things like reparations and solar panels for fucking donkeys. He will pass every fucking law that comes across his desk that gets rid of napkins and plastic spoons. But you ask him to just create something that everybody, not surprisingly, it sailed through the state legislation without a single no vote from either party or chamber. And he vetoes it because fiscal responsibility. It is important to remain disciplined when it comes to spending. Then why are we diverting money into a fucking bullet train to nowhere? This is mind-bending. Sure, the governor supports the goal of figuring out why California's kids are dying, he wrote in his veto message. It's just, the money. I just, wow. The kind of shit that he has passed recently, he's going to ban gas-operated generators. But he doesn't want to spend money trying to figure out why kids die. It's just, I'll let you show what he cares about. He cares about getting that left-wing vote in his bid for presidency. Speaking of left-wingers, I want to punch in the face. Just stop oil protesters throw tomato. Remember the Batman shirt? There's your Van Gogh tie-in. Climate. I mean, my initial reaction is, to be honest with you, if I was standing there, I'd just punch him in the face. I understand what they're trying to do, but the fact remains we're not going to stop oil. Okay, when we're done using oil, other countries will begin using more oil. It's evolution. The U.S. Oil and Gas Association, they hate oil, so they superglue their hands to the wall. Superglue is made from oil. I love that irony, but I love that they're fighting back. Because, right now, when it comes to things like heating and fueling our vehicles, gas and oil reign supreme. They just do. And as the world evolves and developing nations develop, they're going to start driving cars. They're going to need more electricity. So what is our answer? What is our answer? Coal is polluting. Are we going to ramp up nuclear? Because the very same people who don't want us to use coal really don't want to use nuclear. It's mind-blowing to me, but, I guess they're scared of some shit that happened a long time ago in some decrepit buildings and had human error involved. And nowadays, we live in a more refined world with computer-controlled stuff, and we really know what we're doing with nuclear power. But let's abandon that and hope to God the sun comes out today. All right. Liberals feel being treated like conservatives as Elon Musk controls Twitter. Yeah, isn't that an awesome one? Yeah. They're worried that Twitter will start banning them. And the truth of the matter is Twitter is the community message board for the world. I mean, it's kind of a bathroom wall, to be honest with you. But if it is the only form for individuals to really get their message out there in any form or fashion. I mean, look at me. But I don't know. I don't know, but this like-minded leadership is really the part of this that, there needs to be a bit more neutrality. And that's one thing that I think Purple State, the concept of Purple State, offers, is a form of neutrality where, maybe I don't necessarily agree, but you're kind of making a good point, and maybe I should dig into it a little bit, or okay, we have a difference of opinion on it, but it's not really that big of a deal, but right now what we see is a desperate fight between two agendas that are not being driven by common sense or common good. They're being driven by people in a back room who decided, hey, we want to make XYZ happen. Oh, God. And here's a great example of it, how woke policies turned downtown San Francisco into an urban drug den. They have ruined that city. Yes, okay, people still go there, and there's parts that are nice and all of that, but this part is what's actually happening there, and it will only spread. Rampant drug use and dealing has led to a surge in crime, overdoses, and homelessness, with office workers staying home and residents fleeing for safer ground. Only a major shift of political will can prevent the problems from getting worse. Yes, the agenda didn't work. Allowing people to do drugs on the streets and deal drugs on the streets freely did not work. I'm not surprised. Some people might be, and a lot of people are still in denial. Denial. You go back to my alcohol days, man. Think about it. I had wrecked my life to the point where I had to go to rehab to avoid jail. But I still thought I could control it. That's what's going on with these people. That's my perspective. Among the 62 largest cities in America, San Francisco ranks dead last in post-pandemic recovery. Here's the part they don't always tell you. The problem is only going to worsen as commercial real estate contracts that were signed at the height of the tech boom expire. Yeah, somebody's paying for those empty buildings, but pretty soon they won't be. Then what? Decay. Yeah, a My Chem reference. San Francisco is a famously tolerant city. They got rid of the woke school board. They recalled the woke Chesa Bodine. Bodine, in case you don't remember, he was a guy who basically ran the DA's office as a public defender's office and said that drug dealers were victims of human trafficking, but didn't go after the traffickers. He had twice as many people died in San Francisco of drug overdoses than COVID over the course of the pandemic. You see it, it's right there. These are all proved facts. I'm not Alex Jones. Fuck that guy. He got 3 convictions for drug dealing in 2021, 0 for peddling fentanyl. All the while, some Honduran dealers were making $1,000 a day. His policies were putting $1,000 in their day. How much do you make? How long does it take you to make $1,000? They were doing it in the open without any fear of reprisals from the police. Nevertheless, only one of the 11 supervisors supported the recall, and now they are endorsing the opponent of the lady who's filling in, who's even more radical. They're like, oh, they didn't like Bodine? Maybe they'll like one that's more radical. And these are the people, remember, these are the people who are making agendas, but they don't have to live with the consequences. If they lived with the consequences, they would make different decisions. We live with the consequences. We must start making different decisions. We outnumber them. They started putting up Xerox copies of a newspaper article that said that Brooke Jenkins was going to consider murder charges for fentanyl dealers. They were taped up on neighborhood corners frequented by drug dealers, and at least one of them was translated into Spanish. All the better for the dealers in question, most of whom are Honduran nationals. See? If you're dealing drugs in a country with stiff drug policies, it makes good business sense to go where it's an open air drug market and nobody will arrest you. $1,000 a day. That's over $250,000 a year. Out in the open. And where is that money that these drug addicts are giving to these dealers? It's coming from the government and the homeless advocates. They are funding the drug trade in San Francisco. Straight up. The state of California, the U.S. federal government, and all of those little charities are literally putting $1,000 a day into a dealer's pocket. And how many dealers there are, God only knows, because they ain't being counted or arrested. It is just, this is a story of the Whole Foods, brand new, that opened in March. They opened in March under the colossal tower of luxury apartments for tech workers. 6,500 square foot market. Imagine what that did to the environment. Right? And guess what? They started locking up things in the store. Then they started putting them into the back, into the rear storerooms. Undeterred, addicts simply began walking into the employee-only section of the store and rifling through coolers and boxes for coveted merchandise. You might think that Whole Foods makes a lot of money, but they're doing it on razor-thin margins. Look it up. Look up their margins. Yeah. Oh, they have a 30% markup. Yeah, they have overhead. It's just like we saw last week with the gas. They may make 20 cents, but they only get to keep 7 cents. That's how it is. And you think they're going to open up any more Whole Foods there? Look what this lady says. Her son is stuck with politicians who hand addicts free drug paraphernalia and double down on the same failed policies. She wants her son arrested, put in the system so that they can be forced to confront their problem. What they do with it after that, at least they're trying. That's what we were trying to accomplish by kind of decriminalizing things. But drug addicts don't give a shit. If you give them a second chance, they're going to keep going and taking more chances and more chances. And they're just going to keep doing the drugs. Unless they're forced not to. That's what you can do in jail to some degree. Lock down rehab facilities to some degree. At least you can make an attempt. Now we're getting a desalination plant here. It's just kind of funny how our drought has gotten so bad. We have 12 of them here, but, it's not going to be the answer. I think the answer lies in desalination and wastewater reclamation for agriculture. Nobody wants to drink poop water. If it's really that safe, put it on the crops. That's just my opinion. Put it through some reverse osmosis and all that shit, and just put it in a bottle and call it peace water. There you go. That's gonna be $1 million idea. All right. So here we are. Scooby-Doo. People are outraged after finding out Scooby-Doo series doesn't include Scooby-Doo. Okay. Wow. Okay, so this... Oh, man. So they're going to do one of these prequel stories on HBO Max or some form of prequel story because they need to explain why the dog isn't there. So we're going to have Velma, who's going to be played by Mindy Kaling. So she's going to be, Asian, I guess. They come from the continent of Asia. Indian, I believe. But anyhow, we're also going to have Shaggy no longer referred to as Shaggy. He will be referred to in his real name, Norville Rogers, and he's going to be black. And many have praised its makers for introducing diversity into the classic cartoons, but others are not happy that Scooby is not included at all. Sure, you could make a story about, a young Indian American detective, sort of like Veronica Mars, and, have, a black sidekick, again, Veronica Mars. But no, they want to take Scooby-Doo, use only the bits that will benefit their inclusionary diversity story to try to draw in people. But they're trying to draw in the very same people who are going to be pissed off that they did it in the first place. But it's their agenda, and that's what they have to stick with. And then when this fails, because it's probably a shit show, they can just say, oh, it's the racist, it's the MAGAs. And they'll have their little excuse. They probably won't even air the goddamn thing, man. They'll just write it off, use it as a tax write-off. I don't see, it's set to release. But it's faced heavy backlash because it's dumb. It's not only that they're taking something as we know it and completely changing it and gutting it of what we know it is. It's, why do we have to politicize children's cartoons? Why can't we just have Scooby-Doo? Why don't you, if you want some diversity, go ahead, add somebody. How about that? Diversity through addition, not diversity through substitution. How about that? I mean, you're talking about a classic story, okay? And you're just gonna glom the parts you want, so that people will watch it and it's got a big name attached to it. and he'll get some free press because it's fucking stupid, and the press loves to promote stupid shit. Anyhow, I'm getting bored of that shit, but you can see why whatever. What we've seen, the LA Council, these kind of diversity type things, they want us to believe that racism can completely evaporate. But it will always exist through preferences. Groups will always favor their groups. It's unavoidable. Now, we could stomp it out and we could say, hey, you may feel that way, but you can't act upon it. But it's never going to disappear. And you can shove this shit down our throats until the cows come home. And it's not gonna magically change. One of the best storylines ever was Princess Bubblegum and Marceline on Adventure Time. Everything was subtle. It was just subtle. We got it. We connected with characters. Oh, look, they're two girls and they're in love. Didn't really give a shit. You weren't changing anything. You weren't ruining anything. You weren't subtracting anything. It was subtle. I remember I can't remember his name. I want to say Steven, but there was a gay guy on Survivor. And there was nothing about him other than the fact that he told us that would let you know that he was gay. It's just a normal dude who liked dudes. That kind of subtlety is what really works. But taking a beloved, multi-generational show like Scooby-Doo and butchering it in the name of wokeness, it doesn't help. It just reinforces the opinions on one side or the other. And that's what they want. They want to keep us divided. Kamala Harris demands to know who locked up all these drug offenders. Possibly her. PayPal automatically pulls $2,500 in reparation from all white people's accounts. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. Really nothing burger to me. They've already retracted the policy and whatever. You boys are not going out as Hunter and his father. But Mom, we're swamp monsters. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny, That would be a cool couple's costume. Hunter and Joe. Which one? I don't know. Well, he's topless, so I guess the guy would have to be Hunter and the woman would have to be Joe. And yeah, I know it's unfair that men can be shirtless and women can't, but could you imagine if every woman walked around shirtless? I mean, men would not know what to do with themselves. Maybe in a couple generations, maybe it would become totally passé, and men wouldn't just be like, driving into parked cars. But I don't know, because one thing I've learned in all my life is boys will be boys. Yeah, see, their agenda. They're taking taxpayer funds and funneling them to their cohorts. That's what's going on. Bit by bit, I believe we can do something. Overnight, it's just robbery. Cafe with self-ordered kiosks and self-serve coffee asks you if you want to leave a tip. They do. I saw that at the concert last night. I mean, I get it. Like, tip the guy. But you know what? To be honest with you, the dude selling shirts, like, you got it easy. I feel like we should be tipping the janitors. We should be tipping the people who are, like, showing you to your seat. Those people are doing a job. But, the dude who fucking sold me a shirt, come on. Entire professional soccer team dead after team bus goes over slight speed bump. Oh, man. Yeah, they flop a lot in soccer. It's some shit that I have to take a lot. But you know what? Like, that's just me, man. You could take something that's sacred to me and make fun of it, and I'm still going to laugh because funny is funny. That's purple state. That's a good way of looking at purple state. Funny is funny. That's just it. We don't have to have this ulterior motive. It doesn't. I don't have to take that as offensive or mean or derogatory. It's funny. I love this one. Blame Putin? Yep. And so much of that is them. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to hear how Putin had anything to do with the U.S. border or energy independence or education or in California, gas prices or law and order. We can blame Putin for maybe some of the world peace, some of the supply chain, but that's just insanity. Come on, folks. I mean, if you're still voting on that side, I get it. I understand that you got to fight the right's agenda or the people on the right got to fight the left's agenda. But, maybe we should just all just say, fuck it, and not vote. I yield my time. Fuck this. Muslim family is back on no-fly list after attending school board meeting. Holy shit, that is the darkest shit. That is definitely the dark meme of the week in the world of politics. Wow. Jan 6 panel continues to hold hearings for stuffed animals and action figures they arranged in chairs. It is just come on. If you don't have the evidence now, what more do you need? You're just dragging this out because everything else you do turns to shit. And this is probably the only thing that the Democrats are making any real progress on January 6th. That's the only thing. And at the end of the day, voters don't give a shit about January 6th when they have to go spend their entire paycheck at a gas station and hope to God they don't get followed home and robbed. Best of the week. Last minute entrant of head of cabbage surges to lead the Pennsylvania Senate race. Oh, the head of cabbage. If that head of cabbage had a D or an R next to its name, I would almost believe that. Because that's what we've gotten to. These two, and Warnock and Walker, Mr. Herschel, really typify the problem with this agenda-based politics that we have now. We are not looking for the best candidate. We're literally just looking for somebody to fill a seat with the right letter next to their name. Okay? I mean, dude, I'll be honest with you. If I had a vote in that race, all seriousness, I would probably vote. I don't really know which way. I would probably vote for whoever was not one of those two. And yes, that would be throwing away my vote. But push comes to shove, I mean, I would vote for Fetterman over Oz, only because Oz is just a deceptive little piece of shit. But he's got the R next to him, so he's going to get a certain amount of people. But Fetterman, we talk about Biden's difficulties in comprehension and memory and all of that. But this guy's got some severe issues. But again, he's got a D next to him. So he's going to get 41% of a certain county because they're just voting for a D. That's just the way it is. There is no two ways about it. We are not looking for the best candidate. We're looking for a fucking letter. That I cannot urge enough for you to look at and to think about. Because if we don't start making that change, the change from a two-party system to a viable three-party system, maybe four, little alterations, we're doomed. Because we're literally looking at Warnock or Walker, but we don't really care. And they're being funded nationally. Keep in mind this, too. People from California are sending Warnock money. They're sending people like Fetterman money. Please, hashtag donate to the cabbage. Let's get this cabbage elected. It can't be any worse than these two or the two down in Georgia. But they're just going to keep voting for the letter because it's all about the numbers. Well, fuck the numbers. For shit's sake, we have to do better than that. We have to do better than that. And it starts by getting rid of these stupid, dumb, absurd agendas. Abortion, over the top climate change, electric vehicles, open borders. Who the fuck cares? We didn't even need to talk about Roe versus Wade. Just let it be. But no, the fucking agendas. Purple State hopes to be agenda free Our only agenda being doing what's best for the most. That might be the only agenda. Kid Copious, I'm Purple State, and so are you.